Hey, we're going to make it real today by looking at McCulloch versus Maryland off of Oye.org. In McCulloch versus Maryland, let's just get to the facts of the case. In 1816, Congress chartered a second national bank of the United States. The state of Maryland imposed taxation on that bank because the bank was in their jurisdiction. McCulloch, the cashier of the bank, refused to pay the tax. Maryland court said that the national bank, the second bank, was unconstitutional because the Constitution did not provide a contextual commitment, which means that they did not write specifically that the federal government could charter a bank. So the questions arose, and there were two of them. Did Congress have the authority to establish the bank, and did Maryland law unconstitutionally interfere with congressional powers? Go back to Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Marshall, and he's utilizing the necessary and proper clause, Article 1, Section 8, that elastic clause that we keep talking about. Marshall said that Congress possessed the powers not explicitly outlined in the U.S. Constitution. He redefined necessary to mean appropriate and legitimate, covering all methods for furthering objectives covered by the enumerated powers. So this man here expanded the powers of the legislative branch with this one case right here and said that Maryland may not impose a tax on the bank. Where is it in the Constitution? It's not in the Constitution. He's telling you that the powers of the legislative branch are much bigger than what are actually written in the Constitution itself. Now, there's another case that we should look at real quick. Gibbons versus Ogden, dealing with steamboats and licenses. Let's just get right to the heart of the matter. There's a New York state law that gave Livingston and Fulton a 20-year monopoly over navigation on waters within their state's jurisdiction. Ogden and other competitors tried to forestall the monopoly, but Livingston and Fulton largely succeeded in selling franchise or buying competitors' boats. Gibbons, a steamboat owner who did business between New York and New Jersey under a federal license, formed a partnership with Ogden, which then fell apart when Gibbons operated under another steamboat on a New York route belonging to Ogden. So let's get to the heart of the matter. Who controls interstate commerce? Is it under federal jurisdiction, or if you needed to trade between states, did you have to have a state license along with a federal license that would give you more authority to do that trade? So here the question was, does the Commerce Clause give Congress authority over interstate navigation? Now remember, interstate navigation is not necessarily written specifically in the Constitution. But under John Marshall, what Marshall said was that if you are going to trade and you are going to conduct business within interstate commerce or with interstate commerce, you must have a federal license to do so because only the federal government deals with interstate commerce. This is not a state-by-state thing. It is a federal government thing. So once again, what we are doing is we are negating state laws and expanding the power of the federal government at that time. So if you go back to our previous slide of making it real, you see that the Marshall Court with Marbury versus Madison imposed its authority there, and then you also have with Gibbons versus Ogden and McCulloch versus Maryland that expansion of the federal government under the leadership or under the opinion of John Marshall, who at that time was a Federalist, and expanded it to the point where you see a much growing or much bigger federal government. So we're making it real by looking at Oye.org through two Supreme Court cases today and then one from the previous day as well.